And again, if you are just joining us, thank you so much. We're just going to post right in that chat where you're from today. We're so excited to see so many of our fantastic PTA advocates from all over the state. Madam President, you can begin.
Thank you, Kyle. Good evening to all my PTA advocacy friends. I am Helen Hoffman, and I am your New York State PTA president. I'm so honored to welcome all of you to our third virtual legislative summit. Our legislative committee have been very busy planning a night filled of important advocacy information for you. And as you know, advocacy is at the heart of our PTA mission. Our mission is PTA is a powerful voice for all children, a relevant resource for families and communities, and a strong advocate for the education and well-being of every child. New York State PTA makes a difference every day in the lives of our children, whether it's in the halls of our Capitol or the halls of your school building. Speaking up and taking action on behalf of children and youth is what we do. And we do this by supporting kids and raising awareness, my presidential theme. I'm so excited to share that we have 250 advocates joining us this evening from all 12 PTA regions. This is fabulous, and I'm so excited. This event is only possible because of the outstanding work of our legislative committee. Their many hours of dedication will bring you an informative program that I know everyone will be thoroughly enjoy. My heartfelt thanks to all of them for their hard work, and I'd like to just acknowledge them right now. Our legislative coordinator, Patrice Fracklin. Our designated officer of the advocacy team, Patty Frazier. Our executive director, Kyle Filipowski. Our communications/marketing associate, Caitlin Daly. And I also want to thank the members of the advocacy team who you'll meet throughout the night. We have Susan Fisher, our resolutions coordinator, Amy Heisick, our wellness coordinator, Megan Zarki, our education coordinator, Lisa Zukoff, our family engagement coordinator, Pat Jenko, health specialist, Christina Arroyo, juvenile protection specialist, Marianne Carangelo, our environmental specialist, and Tina Sheck, our education specialist. In closing, I want to remind everyone that Friday is PTA Founders Day. And this week, New York State PTA has been celebrating all our many PTA accomplishments. It was two women, Alice McClenny Burney, who was from New York, and Phoebe Appison Hearst, who had an idea to use their voice to protect the welfare of children and gathered others in Washington, D.C. to promote their cause. Later, PTA merged with the National Congress of Colored Parents and Teachers, led by Selena Butler. We celebrate these three ladies this week and proudly continue their mission as advocates for New York State PTA. On behalf of our 2.6 million school children, I want to thank each of you for being a part of the 2023 Legislative Summit. Now I'm going to ask Patrice Fracklin, our legislation coordinator, to give a few housekeeping items, and then I'll be back for another important introduction. Patrice?
Thanks so much, Helen. Just wanted to say hello, good evening, advocates, with just a few housekeeping items that I need to remind you. At all times, we will stay muted with our videos off, so we can really concentrate on our fantastic and wonderful speakers and videos. Secondly, we will be using our chat box for questions and keeping a list of questions there. Third, we will be having a Q&A session after each issue topic later in the presentation, so make sure to get your questions in. Fourth, If at any time you have another question, please don't hesitate. Just type it in the chat and we'll try to get to it and give you an answer as soon as possible. Fifth, we will be wrapping up at the end of the breakout room training Zoom sessions, but no later than 9 p.m. tonight. As you know, we respect your time and are thrilled you're spending this evening with us. And lastly, we'll be recording the event so you can access it and watch it later. And now, back to Madam President Helen Hoffman.
Thank you, Patrice. It is now my true honor to introduce our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Betty Rosa. Dr. Rosa could not be here in person tonight, and she sends her regrets. However, she has taped something for us to share with all of you tonight. But before we watch the tape, I want to share her amazing accomplishments with you. Dr. Rosa was appointed as permanent commissioner in 2021 by the Board of Regents. She is a longtime valued partner of New York State PTA, and she is the first Latino woman to serve in this position. Prior to commissioner, she served on the Board of Regents since 2008 and was elected chancellor by her Board of Regent colleagues in 2016. Dr. Rosa is a nationally recognized education leader who began her career in New York City Department of Education as a bilingual paraprofessional, teacher, and reading coordinator. She also served as an assistant principal and principal in special education. In 1998, Dr. Rosa was appointed to the position of Superintendent of Community School District Number 8 in the Bronx, and later appointed to serve as Senior Superintendent of the Bronx. Dr. Rosa has more than 30 years of instructional and administrative experience with an expertise in inclusive education, cooperative teaching models, student achievement, and policy implementation. Throughout her career, Dr. Rosa has been honored with many awards and recognition. From a PTA perspective, Dr. Rosa is fully and completely committed to supporting our state's parents, families, students, and educators. She is truly a thoughtful leader, partner, and a friend to New York State PTA. We are so honored to work with her on a daily basis on many of the critical issues facing our children today. And without further ado, I offer warm and heartfelt welcome to Commissioner Rosa.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share some brief remarks with you. Before I begin, I would like to congratulate newly installed PTA President Helen Hoffman on this achievement. We look forward to working with her in this capacity alongside Kyle. I also want to thank each of you for everything you do on behalf of our students. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Senator Shelley Mayer, who has been, and I know will continue to be, a valuable partner to all of us as chair of the Senate Education Committee. Together with our partners like the PTA, we are taking steps to boldly reimagine the future of education with a foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Graduation Measures Blue Ribbon Commission is bringing together the PTA, students, educators, higher education, business, and others to undertake a thoughtful and inclusive review of state high school graduation measures. We also are examining our state's assessment and accountability systems to best support our schools and districts' efforts to foster educational environments that are welcoming to all. These policies share a common goal: to provide students with the tools they need to graduate high school prepared for a lifetime of continuous learning, fulfilling careers, and informed civic engagement. Each is a part of a broader effort to improve the system for every student, and that is reflected in our state legislative and budget priorities. We have a renewed focus on career and technical education, customer service, and equity of resources for our most vulnerable students. These efforts will complement the existing work of the department. These proposals are needed for us to enact a 21st century educational system that will enable our state to be a leader in preparing students for life after school. These are the foundational pillars of our work and budget proposals, and we greatly look forward to continue to collaborate with you, your leadership, and the board to enact this vision on behalf of the over 2 million students we serve together each and every day. Together we can accomplish great things, and I will leave you with this quote: "Behind every child who believes in themselves is a parent who believed first." Thank you.
Madam President, wasn't that a fantastic message from our commissioner? Madam President Helen Hoffman and I meet with Commissioner. I think it feels like every once a week now at this point, Helen, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And share a little bit about those meetings. We meet with her. We meet with her on critical topics on everything from school budgets to school meals to we're talking a lot about suspensions right now and restorative practices. So it's nice to have that collaboration. I know she wanted to be here in person.
She did want to be here with us. I had the opportunity to ask her in person to participate, and she was so excited. And she has really changed the state education department. They've really won our voice at this table, and it's so exciting to have this opportunity, not just for me, but our entire state. So thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Commissioner, for that wonderful speech. And I loved her quote at the end. That's going to resonate with me for a long time. Thank you.
Absolutely. And now we have another special guest who is joining us. If I could ask Senator Mayer to please come on screen. She is, as you can imagine, always critically busy with everything that she does. She is in between commitments in her district and joining us from, she's been texting me saying, Kyle, I am on the side of the road. I found a rest stop I could pull over and get on the Zoom. Senator Mayer, thank you for being with us tonight. Senator Shelley Mayer is the chair of our Senate Education Committee. But besides that, she is a longtime PTA friend and supporter. And recently, past President Dana Platon awarded her with a fantastic honorary lifetime membership award. We are thrilled that you are joining us live. You are a steadfast advocate for our children. During your tenure in both the Senate and the Assembly, Senator Mayer has continuously fought for students with disabilities, expansion of CTE and BOCES services, our high-need students, our English language learners, led the charge in mental health support, led the charge in supports for our teachers and our educators. I don't think there's anything you haven't advocated for our students. So thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you so much for being a partner in PTA. And I will share one brief story. I walked into the first Senate education meeting of the year 2 weeks ago, and Senator Mayer is chairing, and she is sitting at the chair. And what were you holding? Do you remember your coffee cup?
A PTA cup.
It was a PTA coffee cup. She said, Kyle, look at the cup. I'm ready for a fantastic year. I'm going to turn things over to our fantastic Senate Education Chair, our Senator Shelley Mayer. Shelley.
Thank you, Kyle. That's so nice of you. I really do appreciate it. It was sort of funny as I pulled the cup up and I saw Kyle sitting there. I was like, this is fortuitous that I picked the right cup for today, because education is all about parents and teachers and kids. And you have had your focus on that with no distraction. And during COVID, I always say, I just can't acknowledge what a challenge you all met and exceeded. So, and congratulations, Helen, on your leadership. I'm very much excited to be working with you. And of course, to Commissioner Rosa, who has been a colleague and a friend and a leader in her own right. I said to someone the other day, I've never been a teacher, but I have been a parent. And I know as a parent what I wanted for my kids, what I want for my grandchildren, and what I know that every parent wants from a school. And that's why I always feel this great affinity with the PTA, because there aren't a lot of places for a parent who is not a teacher and not an expert in education, like I am not, to have a loud voice about what is best. We have an excellent sense of what really makes our schools work. And so I'm very, very fortunate to be the chair of the Senate Education Committee. And I'm fortunate that the leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, put me in that position, and I continue to fight. Now, right now, the reason I'm driving home so late is from Albany is because we're still in the midst of the budget. We're off for a few days, but we are submitting our budget requests, each house of the legislature. So I to the Senate Majority Leader and my Assembly colleagues to their leader, to get to our one house budgets to respond to the governor. And so where the PTA has a request, it's been communicated, because Kyle is a fantastic advocate for the organization, and I will do my best, along with my colleagues who are strong supporters, to fight for our children and fight for the PTA. And so you have my commitment to be a partner in this effort and to be a champion and a voice. I said to a administrator the other day, he said, "Oh, I heard you had been a teacher." I said, "No, but I'm a person like all of you on this call who walks into a school and can tell viscerally how well it's working, how well the staff responds, how well the kids seem, all those things." And so I'm taking that personal experience and trying to translate it into advocacy and real results for our kids and our schools. So thank you, New York State PTA, for your leadership, for your louder voice over the last few years. Kyle's been a very powerful advocate. And I look forward to working closely with you to doing our best in this budget and going forward for every one of these kids. They deserve that, and that's what our job is.
And Senator Shelley, thank you so much for everything that you do in Albany. Whenever we show up at your office, whenever our members call you, whether they be from your district or from our rural schools, our urban schools, our suburban schools, our high-need students, our English language learning families, or immigrant families, whoever they are, you take their phone calls, you take their emails. We are so fortunate to have a partner in you. Thank you so much. Know that PTA stands ready, willing, and able to walk the halls in Albany, to make those phone calls, to do anything that you need to do so we can support every child with one voice, so we can continue to support kids, raise awareness together. Madam President, do you have any words for our fine senator?
Senators, Mayor, I am looking forward to our continuous relationship. I've worked with you for many years, not as the president, but alongside you. We appreciate what you do for us, and your voice for us at that table. It's really important. So I want to also thank you and give you a thumbs up on all the work that you're doing for kids.
Thank you, Helen,
so much.
I look forward to it. Thank you, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
And have a wonderful evening. Have a safe travel home, and I'll see you in Albany next week.
Okay.
And now we're so excited because we're going to transition to the next part of our presentation, which will be the highlight presentation. So I'm going to turn things over to this next recording of our fantastic Youth Award winner.
Hello, I am Patty Frazier, New York State PTA Treasurer and Designated Officer for Advocacy. It is my privilege to present the recipient of this year's Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award. As you may be aware, in April 2019, New York State PTA announced the death of our Vice President, Suzanne Smoller, a tireless advocate and warrior for children after her courageous health battle. Vice President Suzanne Smoller was a true advocate for every child. She was a dedicated PTA leader with the Fairfield PTA, the Massapequa Junior Senior PTSA, the Massapequa Council of PTAs, the Nassau Region, and New York State PTA. Suzanne served as the New York State PTA Vice President for Advocacy after holding the positions of Juvenile Protection Specialist, Strategic Planning Committee Chairperson, Legislation Coordinator, Wellness Coordinator, and Health Specialist. She was also leader of the LGBTQ caucus. National PTA recognized Suzanne's expertise, and she was a panelist at the 2018 National PTA Convention Opiate Summit. She received so many honors and awards, I would spend the next hour listing them now. She was a steadfast community advocate. Most importantly, Suzanne was a wonderful wife and mother to her husband of 26 years, Jeff, and incredible daughters, Elizabeth and Alexa. Suzanne lived by the quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." She is missed each and every day. To continue her legacy and life's work, the New York State PTA Board of Directors in November 2019 developed a new advocacy award, the Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award. This prestigious award is given to one high school senior to encourage them to pursue post-secondary education or training and to continue their active engagement in advocacy in the areas of HIV/AIDS, the LGBTQ+ community, mental health, social justice, or substance use. I am so pleased to announce that this year's award recipient, Gurdev Burji, is joining us today. I would like to share a bit from Gurdev's application. Ever since my freshman year, when I was first able to join the GSA at my school, I have been determined to help make my school a better place. I became co-president of the GSA at my school midway through my freshman year, and in the 3 years since that, I have worked endlessly to grow the club 10 times in size, hold more fundraisers than ever before, and have a far greater impact on students and teachers through the school. In the GSA, I've been able to create presentations to educate the club about what is going on in the world and what we can do to help. From signing petitions to donating money. Being part of multiple marginalized groups, I've been able to learn the worth of social justice and the impact activism can have. Suzanne would have been so proud of you, Gurdev, and so are we. It is our honor to present the 2022-2023 Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Award to Gurdev Burji from W.T. Clark High School in East Meadow, New York, Nassau Region. Gurdev.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gurdev Burji, and I am the Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award recipient of this year. First off, I'd like to apologize for not being able to be here with everyone live. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be able to convey how honored and thankful I feel to be able to receive an award of this caliber. For a bit of background on myself, I am a senior at W.T. Clark High School, where I'm the co-president of our school's GSA, the vice president of our environmental club, and the president of our mock trial team. In the previous school year, I was one of 4 students from my school that attended an event by the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide, and I was able to gather an amazing amount of resources and knowledge for methods, programs, and institutions that help create a safer mental environment for teenagers. As co-president of the GSA, not only am I an advocate for LGBTQ rights, but I am an advocate for mental health, social justice, and substance abuse. A lot of teens who join clubs like these have a passion for advocating for themselves and for their friends, and that passion often comes with struggle. I am lucky to be educated enough and to have access to resources that allow me and the rest of the club to help them. I currently lead the binder donation program at my high school, Through the Pride for Youth chapter at the Long Island Crisis Center, I was able to get binders that had been lightly used and donated for students who showed interest in obtaining one. The rest of the board and I put together guides for measurements and usage of the binders, as well to ensure that everyone would be safe while using them. And if they didn't feel comfortable enough to get a binder just yet, we helped them learn safe binding methods that could help them otherwise. The GSA, we are able to educate anyone that comes to a meeting on more than just LGBTQ issues. We have talked about and gained new perspectives on struggles for people of color, women, and people of differing religious beliefs. Currently, we are planning on raising money for an AIDS and HIV foundation. The original plan was to do this in December during the actual AIDS and HIV Awareness Month, but we were forced to postpone it due to circumstances out of our control. We have also been working on an educational presentation for teachers and staff that may not know or understand how to address LGBTQ topics within their classrooms. This presentation will go over terms and topics teachers should understand, how to make their classrooms a more inclusive environment, and answer some questions that they may have had. We also have been working on a program called Character Arc that lets high school students mentor middle school students in any area from academics to their personal lives. We hope to have this program up and running before the summer. In the future, I plan on going to college to pursue a degree in psychology and to use that knowledge to better the world as best as I can. Mental health remains an extremely taboo topic for a massive proportion of people, not just throughout the world, but in our own communities, with our friends, our families, and in our schools. I am truly honored to receive this award. I am very grateful to everyone that helped me get to where I am through their unwavering support and their unparalleled confidence in my abilities. I never could have accomplished this much without them all. Thank you so much.
Well, it certainly was a pleasure hearing those words from you, Gurdev. What an asset you are to the community there at William Trusper Clark High School, as well as the East Meadow community. We are so pleased that we are able to bestow this award on you, and we thank you and we wish you well in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Patrice, at this time, could you come on camera with all of our advocacy team members for our next session, where we're going to discuss our 3 priority advocacy issues. Patrice?
All right, so good evening, everyone. Again, we are really excited to move into this short training session. And you'll hear every single issue regarding our asks. That's basically it. So I think, Kyle, you're going to roll forward.
Yes, and just a reminder, we're going to be taking questions on each issue in between the issues. So our first issue we're going to talk about is student mental health. We're going to take student mental health questions after the student mental health presentation. We're then going to roll into school meals. We'll take school meals questions after that. After school meals, we're going to talk about school aid, and we're going to take school aid questions after the school aid presentation. So we are going to begin.
Hello, my name is Susan Fisher, and I am the Resolutions Coordinator for New York State PTA. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm here to talk to you about supporting kids and raising awareness about student mental health. Mental health challenges are the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes in young people. And unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen significant increases in certain mental health disorders in youth, including depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. It's especially important to protect the mental health of minority and marginalized young people, and due to factors beyond their own control, those groups are at a higher risk for mental health difficulties. Even before COVID-19, mental health challenges were the leading cause of disability and poor life outcomes among young people, with up to 1 in 5 children and adolescents aged 3 to 17 years in our country having reported mental, emotional, development, or behavioral disorders. Many mental health challenges first emerge early in life, and studies suggest that the average delay between the onset of mental health symptoms and treatment is 11 years. The median age of onset for anxiety disorders is 11 years of age. And specific phobias and separation anxiety disorders start the earliest, with the median age of onset at 7 years. Youth at increased risk are more likely to have increased school absences, impaired cognitive functioning and motivation and functional impairment. They have lower academic achievement. They are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled from school, and 44% of students with a mental health disorder drop out of school. A really hard statistic to look at is that 1 in 11 high school students attempt suicide. If you think about a typical high school classroom of probably 18 to 24 students, that means 4 to 5 students seriously consider suicide in the previous year, and possibly 2 of them even made an attempt. Sometimes families aren't aware of the attempt because there's no visible injury and the student's ashamed or embarrassed to tell someone. So a little bit about the background on New York State PTA's advocacy for student mental health. In 2018, New York State was the first state that required all schools to teach mental health education as part of the healthcare curriculum. And New York State PTA was a crucial part of getting the support and needed to make that law and make that change in our education happen. New York State PTA sat on the State Mental Health Advisory Committee that was working to make that happen. And schools and districts are in a continued process right now to develop, find, implement the appropriate mental health curriculum. It should be age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, and every student from K through 12 should be receiving it. And that's something that you as PTA advocates can be involved with and ensure that your students at your schools and in your district are receiving the education and mental health that they need. Mental health is an essential part of overall health, right? Mental health conditions are real, they're common, and they're treatable. People experiencing mental health challenges deserve our support, they deserve compassion and care, and we want to make sure that we break down the stigma and the shame around them. And focusing on youth mental health right now is critical. We all have a role to play in supporting the mental health of children and youth. So in New York State PTA sent out a survey to all of its members in the fall to ask what issues and concerns around mental health did they find were the most important or critical to be addressed right now. As you can see on this slide, topics like anxiety, depression, bullying, suicide or suicidal thoughts and ideations were at the top of the list. Of course, cyberbullying with the use of social media is another great concern for all of our parents and across New York State. Some other issues that were listed that might not be are abuse and domestic violence, body image and eating disorders, self-esteem, gender identity and expression, acceptance of LGBTQ+ lifestyles, family issues like divorce, family separation, addiction to social media, screen time. Of course, with all of the news going on, as we hear all the time, gun violence and safety in schools is a big concern. And as a reminder, because of those 10 years that may occur between when a person first experiences symptoms and when they actually get the help that they need, these statistics could be lowered if youth and adults feel comfortable asking for help earlier and if treatment is made available for them. Early intervention means better outcomes. So if you think about that 10-year gap for a minute, the important growth and development that's happening in those 10 years, academically, socially, physiologically, psychologically, figuring out and coping strategies that could help them through the rest of their life happens during those 10 years. Other information from our New York State PTA mental health survey was that although parents are trying to have the conversation with their students, and we encourage parents to continue to do that, more than half of the parents and families that were asked are still having trouble having those conversations and how to start it and have those difficult conversations and how to have the resources that they need when having those conversations. And we know that Parents look at schools for resources. We look to our school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers. There are webinars that are available. They would like to see more guest speakers. They want to learn more so that they can support their family more. And so that's why mental health, and as all of us need to work together to support the mental health of students. We must empower our families and communities by equipping them with information and tools to recognize signs of poor mental health or substance abuse and know how to access the supports that we need. It's important for us to create environments that are free of stigma, that allow children, adolescents, young adults, and their families to talk about mental health and well-being and seek help without feeling ashamed or fearing any sort of discrimination. So for Lobby Day, for our budget ask for mental health, although the executive budget includes a $10 million expansion of school-based mental health services, we believe that this is woefully short of what school districts need in order to support students. And we need your help to ask for expanded services in our schools. So what we are asking of our legislators in this budget is to increase school-based mental health funding in both the Assembly and Senate One House budgets. New York State PTA will be impaneling a new New York State PTA mental health task force that is led by our immediate past president, Dana Platon. And with the task force will be working to expand our existing New York State PTA mental health programs and advocacy and identify new ways that we can help to support youth mental health and increase community and school partnerships. We're also pleased to announce that our Executive Director, Kyle Belkapitsky, is just appointed to serve on the Mental Health Association in New York State's newly formed School Mental Health Advisory Committee to continue the work of making sure that mental health education is included in all of our schools and that all of our students are supported all the way around, from the parent voice down to the schools, the counselors, everybody's working together. And many of our governance team members and staff are working closely with Mahaney's, the School Counselors Association, the New York State Office of Mental Health, and other community-based mental health support providers daily. You need to know that New York State PTA stands ready to address and expand support for youth mental health. Just to quote Dr. Vivek H. Murphy, the Surgeon General of the United States, in closing, if we seize this moment, step up for our children and their families in their moment of need, and lead with inclusion, kindness, and respect, we can lay the foundation for a healthier, more resilient, and more fulfilled nation. Thank you.
Hi. I'd like to jump in at this point and thank the people that did send in questions with their registration. And we had a couple of questions. One was specifically, will there be more funding for in-school mental health programs? For example, access to outside mental health counselors in addition to in the school, because the 10 million, doesn't seem to be enough. So will there be more?
That's a great question. I'll take that question, and Susan and others if you want to join in. So one thing New York State PTA continues to advocate for are school counselors and certified mental health professionals in our school buildings. So yes, the good news is that foundation aid is fully funded, which we're going to talk about in the next session. So that should help support that funding. Also, the $10 million for school-based mental health services should support as well. Right now in New York State, we would like to see a 1 to 250 ratio for school counselors to students. We are at about a 1 to 441 ratio, so we're high. Some school districts were about 1 to 900 ratio. We still have some school districts without school nurses or school clinical licensed social workers or school psychologists. So that is something that we continue to work on at New York State PTA. And I know maybe some of my other colleagues, Susan or others, might want to opine on, that expansion of school-based mental health services. Susan, others?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Just to, echo what Kyle said, there is this money. And of course, the first goal will be to make sure that those ratios are ideal. We are not where we want to be in terms of the ratio of school counselors to students. And so the workload is really huge. We do have a shortage of counselors for hiring. So that's another concern that, schools have to face. So there has to be another way to balance out the needs of our students. And so there are ways. I know that there are community providers, there are in-school clinics and community-based providers and relationships that can be created. But again, any additional funding can help create those relationships and make that support all around for the students, and include the education of students, and include the support and education of the families who are living with those students. We want to make sure that we're doing wraparound services, right? We want to make sure that we're supporting them in school, as well as giving them those supports that they need at home as well. So while $10 million is a huge amount of money and the largest mental health budget in, I believe, history for New York State, which is really great, but it's just not quite going to cut it for what we need and the crisis we're facing.
Some other things that also was in the budget that was more community-based and not school-based, I just want to cover them very quickly, that New York State PTA is supporting. So there was an $890 million increase in residential mental health beds, which is so needed in our community. There was funding for 12 new comprehensive emergency psychiatric programs, and then an additional $60 million in capital. Capital means funding for the building of those psychiatric programs, the facilities. Importantly, there was legislation that required insurance companies to cover mental health services. So that's something that New York State PTA is going to be working on. There was continued expansion in funding for the 988 crisis line. As we all know, you call 911 in case of a police or fire emergency. This is 988 crisis line in case of a mental health emergency. There was a community-based youth mental health support and another $10 million grant in suicide prevention programs targeting high-risk youth. There was $12 million for the Healthy Steps program and home-based crisis intervention teams, and $5 million for high fidelity wraparound supports. Something also was important for New York State PTA was their increased funding and support for opioid prevention, addiction, and recovery services. So know that besides the school-based programs, there was also some really great community-based programs for mental health services that we were also advocating for with Mahaney School Counselor's Office, some of the other mental health partners, as we continue to advocate for that.
Thank you, Kyle, for that. We have a few other questions related to the mental health, and I think some of them we're having great information passed on in the chat as well. So what can we do to support our districts around understanding mental health resources in our community? And that we'll start with Kyle, but the rest of the team can jump in as well.
Sure. I think it's important to know that all of you, and then I'm going to toss it to my fantastic partners, every school district has to have mental health as a part of their state health curriculum. So each of your school district has to have an adopted health curriculum, and mental health has to be a part of that curriculum. That's age appropriate. That's kindergarten through 12th grade. So you as PTA leader should be having that conversation with your school's principal and superintendent and say, hey, what does that curriculum look like? How is mental health embedded in our health curriculum for our K through 12 students? So that's a homework assignment. We know at PTA, we always like to give you homework assignments. Homework assignment number one is really to have that conversation with your school building principal. Also, again, you can discuss bringing in mental health professionals to your PTA meeting, which is really, really important. Having your principal come to your PTA meeting, having your school counselors, any mental health professionals you have in your school building coming to your PTA meeting to, again, talk about that. Some of my other colleagues?
Actually, can I ask Tina to step in regarding a recent program that she helped to chair?
So in our school district, we just did recently a mental health day. We had over 30 workshop presenters and exhibitors. And what was great, Susan Fisher was actually there with representing Mahaney and had a great turnout in her workshop. And we had, you know, and as everybody knows, sometimes with PTA events, sometimes we can't get people to come out on a Saturday, but we had over 250 people attend from the community. And we heard back what a great need it was. And the fact that we were able to set up all those resources, there was also a connection between all the exhibitors and presenters. They shared their contact information and they started to work together and network together to say, how can we support our community? So it was an amazing event. It's something I would recommend if you could pull it together for your school districts or your communities. It was such a positive thing, and the payoff was, you know, sometimes we got quite a few emails from parents that just said thank you. They weren't sure how to connect to those resources, and the fact that it was available, they could walk in and they could hear the different topics. I think one of the biggest complaints we got was that we didn't run enough of the workshops again and again. It was a 3-hour day on a Saturday and they wanted to stay longer, which I couldn't believe, but it just shows how much of a need there is out there and how much we need to connect and get our community those resources. And that's what we do in PTA. We want to advocate and we want to give that education to everybody. So it was a great event.
Tina, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Tina's email is specialeducation@nyspta.org. I bet if we email her, she might share some of her ideas about that fantastic event. So I'm going to put that in the chat and Tina can share that with you because it really was a great event.
Yeah, it was. I'd like to jump in and just mention that we had 3 questions regarding substance use, and I'm going to kind of lump them all together. And this is as they pertain to mental health. Are there plans to expand substance use prevention initiatives on site at high schools? Second part was how can we address the use of underage drug use among our students, intentional and unintentional use? And then thirdly, there was a monumental increase in the use of marijuana in teenagers, and just, what resources are there to focus on this issue for us. So I do know that we are trying our best at New York State PTA to get the word out that especially with cannabis now, that it really needs to be regulated. New York State PTA is working on and sent a letter, correct, Kyle, in conjunction with mental health and doctors, et cetera, and other partner organizations to kind of look towards and make sure that the regulations are put in place so that our kids are safe. And that's the bottom line. There's so many avenues for them to stray, to get involved. It's so simple, it's so easy. And we really need that Office of Cannabis, which is newly created, to make sure the regulations are there and that they're followed. And it all filters down to protect our children from marketing to how things look. Who is it attractive? Is it flavors? There's all kinds of stuff like that. But yes, there are loads of things happening on the substance use frontier, so to speak.
Yes, so I'm just popping in the chat box now a couple of letters that we have just filed with the Office of Cannabis Management. They are in the process right now of promulgating regulations on the state's new Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. So we submitted a letter in coalition with a number of public health agencies. We submitted a letter on our behalf on, I think, Monday or Tuesday. I'm losing track of dates this week. It's been a long week. And so we continue to work with them. And I just popped in the chat that those links to where we keep all of our most recent letters. So you can read some of our comments where we continue to, especially on the cannabis regulations, where we say you always have to make sure you're thinking about youth. We're asking for things like, longer periods away from dispensaries, from schools, clearer messaging on marketing and packaging so you can read a whole bunch of things that we've asked for in those regulations. We'll continue to do those as regulations begin to be promulgated by the Office of Cannabis Management. So we will continue to do that work. In substance use disorders, there's a number of things in the budget on substance uses. We will continue to focus on supporting prevention and treatment provisions on substance use, and especially heroin and opioid treatment and prevention in the budget. I do expect those to be included in the budget. And I see that Jerry, our fantastic friend from Suffolk PTA, says they're going to be having a mental health conference as well. So that's fantastic to hear. Patty?
Thank you for these questions. We really are focusing these questions following the presentation on actually that issue, so that it might give you some extra ideas when you're talking to the legislators about what our ask is. If we have some time at the end of the 3 presentations, we'll take more group or more generic type questions, but know that we're saving the chat because that's going to help us with our future presentations that we make to our members as well, either through webinar or web chat. So thank you for that. And I'm going to ask Kyle to move us on to the universal school meals.
Fantastic. So we're going to start with the
Presentation.
next presentation on universal school meals. We'll take the universal school meals questions after this next video. So thank you so much. Stand by. Just give me 1 second. I'm just bringing up that video. YouTube is not working right now, of course, but give me 1 second. And here we go.
Good evening. My name is Megan Zarkey. I am the New York State Education Coordinator. And right below me right here is...
Hi, I'm Marianne Carangelo, and I'm the Environmental Specialist for New York State PTA.
Hi, and we are going to take a couple of moments to talk about our ask in the way of school meals for all students. School Meals for All Students is a critical and necessary program and must be state funded. During the last 2 years, school breakfast and lunch was provided to students during the pandemic at no cost statewide under COVID relief funds. Unfortunately, about little over 6 months ago, on June 30th, 2022, this program ended, which was over the objections of New York State PTA, meal advocates, and our education partners. We continue our strongest advocacy for Congress to enact a School Meals for All program nationwide.
Did you know that a family of 4 making just $51,400 is over income for free school meals? As a result, in New York State, 470,000 children are ineligible for free school meals but live in households earning less than a living wage. 1 in 7 children in New York experience hunger, disproportionately impacting Black, Latino, urban, and rural children. No parent, no family, no educator, no one wants to see a child hungry, but that's what's happening. Our children are hungry, they are food insecure. For some, school is the only place they receive a warm and healthy meal. Why now? Congress has failed to act, so now New York must.
So why School Meals for All? And as you can see, I am coming from my classroom with this recording right here. So I see this very much firsthand as a music educator at a middle school in Nassau region. Hungry kids absolutely can't learn. Students experiencing hunger struggle to focus, they have lower attendance, and they are at greater risk of mental and physical health problems. When students perceive school meals as only for children from low-income households, many decline to participate despite their hunger. Participation drops as students get older and more aware of the stigma. The stigma, literacy and language barriers, and administrative burdens keep many eligible families from submitting school meal applications, driving so much unpaid school meal debt, which is at an estimated $24.9 million statewide. That's a pretty staggering number.
I didn't know that number. That's huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
What are the benefits of healthy school meals for all? Decades of research is clear on child hunger. Free school meals have infinite benefits, including levels the playing field for kids and families. It reduces hungers. It eliminates the stigma and reduces bullying, provides families financial relief, saves families an estimated $140 per child in groceries each month, and eliminates school meal debt, a significant burden for families and school district budgets. 80% of our teachers see hungry students struggle to concentrate. 76% see a drop-off in academic performance, and 62% see behavioral problems develop. and that's from the No Hunger in Our Schools.
So what exactly is community eligibility, and can all afford it? Now, some schools qualify for free school meals now under certain federal programs, but can't afford it. What, who, and why? When schools have a large enough community need, they may be eligible for free meals, which is called community eligibility. School districts who qualify for community eligibility sometimes cannot afford to come up with their share of the funding to support the program. And this absolutely affects our small and rural schools. They are often unable to provide free meals as they can't afford the local share. That's a pretty staggering fact right there. Why? Because local share of supporting this critical food program will cut into critical programs for students. So you'll see lots of cuts in other places to make up for their share of the community eligibility funds. But, you know, in the long run, you're robbing from Paul to pay Peter right there.
New York State PTA advocacy is critical. School meals must be in the budget. On September 7th, 2022, when our New York State students went back to school, 726,000 children lost their access to free breakfast and lunch. Our ask is to provide breakfast and lunch at no cost for all students each school day, regardless of the household income. Our asks include a school meals for all program in the Senate and Assembly one house budgets.
Absolutely. This issue affects every single child across all income levels. You know, having free school meals will just eliminate the stigma. And this is our biggest ask of all in this legislative season for state PTA. So thank you for listening to us. Again, it's Megan and Marianne signing off. Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, it's time for Q&A. People did send in a few questions regarding school meals. One of them was, many school districts still do not offer school lunch. How's that possible? And another comment was, my school does not have a cafeteria. How can New York State help support children in our school to receive free lunches?
That's a Kyle question because it's very, very rare. So if that person is on this Zoom, give me a call tomorrow so we can work with you. Because, oh, you are, Brittany. Yay, let's connect tomorrow so we can find that solution. Because I think you were only one of 2 school districts in the entire state that that is in that situation. So I'm going to put my email in the chat so we can try to help you through that situation. It's extremely rare. So we're going to help you get through that. Thank you. Patrice, next question.
All right, so another question that came up was, why are New York City students offered free lunch for all, but not the students on Long Island?
That's another question. So that is because some school districts have a high enough ratio of students that live in poverty that they are called community eligible school districts. So Megan and Marianne had talked about that a little bit. So if you have a certain percentage, a high majority percentage of students that already qualify for free lunch, and then another percentage that qualify for reduced lunch, then that's called community eligible. And it's a federal program that then all of the students in that school district qualify for free lunch because the school district itself actually picks up that local share. Remember, Megan and Marianne had talked about that local share. So we actually have a large minority of our school districts all across the state that are community eligible school districts. So the federal picks up the federal and the free and reduced price lunch students. And then because there's only a few students left that don't qualify, the school district picks up those, or there's a little bit more federal dollars that picks up those. This proposal that we have now for School Meals for All would actually maximize federal resources to take some of the state funding and give it back to the other school districts a little bit more and maximize federal dollars. So that's why they call average need or low need, or don't have free meals for all, but very, very high need school districts with very high levels of student poverty, they have free meals for all because almost every child in the school building qualifies for either free or reduced price lunch. I hope that answers your question.
And just to piggyback from the comments on that, Kyle, as we know, during the pandemic, the free meals continued throughout the summer. The ask that we're doing now for the School Meals for All, we really are just talking now, hopefully, to be able to have the free breakfast and lunch during the actual school year, or are we, expanding that ask to include summer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's different programs. So there's different funding programs. So this proposal right now is for school meals during the 9-month period. Then there's a different funding program, a different funding stream for summer meals. So they're actually different buckets of money and different programs. So the state and the feds actually kept the summer funding meals continuing, and we had a change in the school meals. So it's a little bit different funding streams, but we support both of those programs. Right now, we're just working on school meals.
Thank you for that. And then just one final question that we have right now, and I think we might have room for another question or two if you want to put those in the chat if something has come to mind. But this is really more for our advocacy team as well. And actually, this covers also into the mental health area in the sense that can we think about elementary level food education, especially the need for more program and less sugar? Obviously, those things, if a child eats a healthy meal, their mental health is totally interlocked with that. So what are we doing along those lines, if anything, now? And is that part of what we're including in our ask for the School Meals for All?
So I'll just jump in a little bit. So it's actually should be a part of your health curriculum about healthy eating. It's already embedded in your elementary school health curriculum program and your wellness program. Remember, curriculum is local. So each school district and school board has a decision making over what's included in your curriculum. But again, that's a great PTA advocacy point where you can, as a PTA unit, go and say, hey, as a part of our healthy living and about healthy eating, you can embed that in your curriculum, but it should be there already.
And I think as a continuation is that we have some questions about allergies and how those are dealt with, food allergies, how those are dealt with in this free school meal program that has already occurred to a certain extent, and the one that we're looking to have brought back into the schools as in the School Meals for All.
I'll jump in here. I think you need to, because that health curriculum is embedded per district and in your school district, don't hesitate to ask the question. Find out who you have to connect with at the district level. Ask at your Board of Ed meeting. Find out, what are they serving? Do they have something in place for your kid who happens to have an allergy? For many years, I worked in special ed classrooms. And quite frankly, we were very, very cognizant of kids who had allergies and made sure that we were on top of that, not just at lunch, but when there was something else going on in the school that involved any kind of food or a treat of some sort. That was really integral to what we were doing in the classroom. So it should be there. I know that, through the health office of your school, they should have all that information, but you can very, very easily advocate for these types of things if they are not in place, or if they're in place and not actually in practice. So don't be shy. It's just a question. Go in and ask ask them how they're facilitating their program. They should be able to tell you without any issue and rather easily.
Thank you. We are going to move on now to our next presentation on school aid, including the support for students and pre-K4 and childcare.
Patty, I'll just answer that last question
Oh,
about the
thanks.
cost of this program. And that because it kind of ties into school aid. So the total cost of the program is just north of $200 million, which is actually a rounding error in our state budget, literally a rounding error. School lunch itself costs about $167 million to provide every child, which the state portion of funding, because remember the feds already cover all of our students that are provided free and then reduced price lunch. And then this proposal would cover school breakfast for those students, and which would be about $34 million. Again, just a rounding error. And we're going to transition now into school aid. And to the last question, I know Amani had asked it a few times. Yeah, so students do not have to take the free lunch. So it is always at the student option. They can still bring their lunch in, and school does a tally just like they do during COVID on what children is going to be taking those lunches that week. And districts do not have an option. They will provide lunch for all children, as they always should. So let me just move, let me go to our next presentation. Give me one moment. And we're going to move on to school aid.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Heisek. I am the Wellness Coordinator for New York State PTA.
Hi, I'm Tina Sheck. I am the Special Education Specialist for New York State PTA.
And so what we're going to do is to go through one of our asks. So thank you so much for attending our legislative summit and learning how to be able to go through these meetings with legislators to be able to advocate for all of New York State's children. What we're going to go through is the one that's about school aid, to make sure that our ask is that it is equitable, that it is adequate, and finally fully funded. So that's the good news. With the very, very, very good news is that school aid is finally fully funded for this school fiscal year for 2024. This is a long time in coming, and so this is a wonderful thing. This is the main source of funding for most schools. More than 60-something% of a school's budget usually comes from foundation aid. So in this current budget, foundation aid is fully funded for the first time after a court battle that started in 2014. This is a huge thanks to Governor Hochul, Senator Shelley Mayer, Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, Speaker Heastie, Senator Jackson, and all of the members of the legislature. As a teacher, this is a huge win for me and for really all of New York State's kids. School aid will be increased an astounding $3.1 billion in this budget. So an astounding 10% over what it was. What this is actually going to do, there are a lot of federal monies and monies that were given to school districts during COVID to be able to do programs and address learning loss and that inconsistency in learning that are running out. Those grants are stopping. What fully funding foundation aid is going to be able to do is that those very valuable programs that are still addressing the needs that students have and that school districts have, this is going to allow them to be able to shift the funding and still be able to provide those really great programs. So this is a really big thank you to all the legislators that participated in making sure that this is fully funded. So this is a huge win. However, there are still some fights to be had. Pre-K, so pre-kindergarten still continues as a priority. Not all districts are able to offer universal pre-K for all of their students. The budget does include an additional $125 million to add 17,500 seats for 4-year-old pre-K programs, but that's not enough. What our ask for New York State PTA is that we strongly support this $125 million for pre-K, but we also ask the legislature for more meaningful increases in funding for high quality school-based pre-kindergarten programs. We also ask and support the new tax credit for the creation and expansion of childcare and the expansion of access to childcare assistance for families. We believe as an association that every child deserves to have complete and equal and equitable access to very high quality pre-K and kindergarten opportunities and full day opportunities. Families are a huge role in pre-K and before the students enter formal schooling for those full day. Those high quality programs that we want to make sure that are available to all families have to include the unique developmental nature, social and emotional learning, physical learning, and academic learning for students before they enter kindergarten. And what COVID has shown us is that these high quality and affordable childcare opportunities for families are definitely a necessity. They're needed to be able to have and allow the parents to be able to work and be part of the workforce, and to provide support, encouragement, and learning opportunities for birth to age 3, and then our students as they go and transition into pre-kindergarten and 4th grade, or for pre-kindergarten when they turn 4, and then kindergarten when they turn 5. By increasing the support that is offered to these youngest learners, this sets them up for success once they enter school and supports their families and our children's journeys. So this is our ask for pre-K funding. The other cool stuff is that we definitely support, there's a $20 million grant funding for, so early college high school, and PTech stands for Pathways in Technology Early College High School. Those programs that prioritize students' support for high needs school districts. However, those fundings and those monies right now are grant-based and competitive funding. So school districts have to compete for these funding streams. We want them to be not competitive funding. We also want them to be sufficient to support all school districts on a formula basis. We support the $10 million in competitive funding for school districts, BOCES, and community colleges to develop those strategic workforce plans, but we really wish that they weren't competitive. We really, as an association, prefer non-competitive funding. We want increases in all of these programs that truly support our children, but also families and also our communities. Early college, high school, and PTech programs are great for students who might not fit the regular academic model of student. This provides opportunities for them to be able to learn differently, to be able to have opportunities, to be able to have training and work-based education, so that they leave with skills that they will be able to use immediately for college and career. We as an association want expanded funding for community schools. A community school offers not just academics, but there are wraparound services that are provided to community members and to families, dental and medical and childcare and all of these other things. Those community schools are truly supportive of the community. And so we definitely want to make sure that those programs are expanded. They are a wonderful strategy for students and for families. And they address not just academics, but health, social, emotional needs of students and families. So our asks for these is to please include funding for after school, early college, high schools, and workforce plans that is not grant-based and non-competitive in nature, and please to increase funding for our community schools. Tina, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Amy. So next section we're talking about is support for our special acts schools, 853 schools and 4201 schools, which are service our most highly vulnerable populations of students. So this could include a school for the blind, for the deaf, and over the years, funding cuts have been made to these special schools. So one of our asks is restore all funding cuts to these special schools. We additionally believe that, a study needs to be done for a new rate setting methodology for certain special education schools, which hasn't been done in a while. So we're supporting the $2.5 million geared towards doing a new study on what the new rate should be. We also asked that, $8 million for capital improvement for state schools for the deaf. There haven't been new improvements to our schools in a very long time, especially for the deaf. It's something that, should just be able to happen, especially with our students with special needs. They need most of a lot of our support. And over the years, the funding hasn't been there and it's actually been taken away. So it's something that we really hope to restore and to give them additional aid going forward. So New York State PTA opposes charter school proposals. New York State PTA continues to be seriously concerned about the funds that are being taken away from traditional public schools and diverted towards charter schools, especially when there have been issues with oversight and keeping track of what's going on in charter schools. We oppose the elimination of the regional cap on the number of charter schools that may be issued in New York City. We are also strongly opposed to the proposal to allow the reissuance of a charter originally issued to a charter school that closed after July 1st, 2015, because it was revoked or surrendered or termination or because they weren't renewed. These proposals have serious effects on our students in the New York City school system, and it disproportionately negative effect. So we believe that the funding should be towards our traditional schools, and with our charter schools, there should be more oversight, especially with the problems that have arisen over the years. We also continue to support the state ed have final approval and authority over the charter approval process for all New York State charter school applications. Charters must have greater accountability, and state ed oversight of the approval process would greatly benefit the students who attend them because they're seeing what's going on and they have a say in that process. These are the asks that we are asking for towards school funding. And we thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that this will help you in the legislative process.
Enjoy your meetings with legislators. Enjoy.
All right, that was wonderful. We got a few questions in regarding this portion of the program, the school aid. And I guess this really goes to you, Kyle. Explain foundation aid changes. Whoa.
Boring. So there's
Yeah, it is.
37 tiers to foundation aid. So foundation aid is the primary way that school districts are funded through the state budget. So foundation aid is about 10, 15 years old now. And it's the primary way that school districts generally are funded two ways. You have foundation aid, and then you have school taxes that are levied by your local school district with your town. So foundation aid is the way that is the state portion of that. It's a very complicated formula. It actually is a 37-tier formula. Each school district is allotted foundation aid, school aid based on their foundation aid formula. Poor districts get more school aid than non-poor or low-need districts through foundation aid. And then poor districts get less tax revenue. High-wealth districts or low-need school districts get more taxes from their local taxpayers. That's generally how it works. So foundation aid, things that go into the foundation aid formula are student need, poverty levels, the income of the community, the wealth of the homes in the community, the neighborhood, how big the town is, the type of town it is it urban, is it rural? There's a whole lot of different calculations going in there. Now, in 2014, foundation aid was originally created to provide what's called a sound basic education for every child. New York State is one of the only states to actually have a state constitutional obligation to provide for a sound basic education for our students, which is very important. It means that in our state constitution, just like the US Constitution for our federal government, this state, it goes to our great question in the chat about why do we pay a little bit more in taxes for education, right?
Exactly.
It's because it is our founders of our state, and I know we believe this as PTA, believe that one of the most important things we do as a state is fund education. Mm-hmm. It is the number one thing we can do. Education is a building block for pretty much all of our principles. You say, if you know anybody that has a job or tradesman, they got it from education, they got it from a teacher, right? So that's why foundation aid is so important, because it's supposed to be a level equaler of all of our students, whether based on their need. It gives them the resources to get a sound basic education, to get an equal and equitable education in New York State. So foundation aid formula was stopped many years ago because the state couldn't pay for it. So the state was short on money. under then Governor Spitzer, and then Governor Patterson, and then Governor Cuomo, and then Governor Cuomo restarted Foundation Aid, so we are very thankful to him. And then Governor Hochul finished Foundation Aid and said she was going to stop the lawsuit that so all of the education stakeholders sued the state government and said, you have to fund education. And we won. And so the court said, you're right, you have to fund it because you owe the schools and children this money. And Governor Hochul said, we're going to fund you. So she stopped the lawsuit. And so this is the third year of the full funding of Foundation Aid, which is really great. So the past 3 years, our school districts have gotten a nice increase in school aid from the state, which is really great. So we're really, really thankful to the legislature because that is their principal way, as Amy and Tina so eloquently said, to really fund Foundation Aid. So thank you to our legislature. Thank you to then Governor Andrew Cuomo. Thank you to current Governor Hochul and our leaders of the legislature for doing that. It's basic school aid 101. There's other types of school aid. You have BOCES aid, which is aid that goes to our boards of cooperative educational services for a lot of CTE programs. You have building aid for school aid when you want to build new school buildings. You have transportation aid and textbook aid for things like buses and textbooks. You also have a mandated aid for things that school districts are made to do. You also have then you have grants and you have competitive things, but those are the main types of school aid, if that makes sense.
Right. Another question that came through was, I'd like to hear more about how districts can support pre-K programs and then how funding can be fairly applied in order to do so. So well, that's one of our asks. We're supporting more pre-K funding. So we're going to be in there asking.
Yeah, so real quickly on that. So the state used to have about 18 ways to fund pre-K, okay? And about 3 years ago, we actually collapsed it to 11 pre-K funding sources. And then we continue to collapse it until pre-K now is really formula driven by school district, because it is our position and the state's position and many of the other educational stakeholders' position is that we want every pre-K 4 child to be able to have access to what's called universal pre-K in a school building. So that is our goal as New York State PTA. So that's what we're aiming for. So this $125 million would add that many more pre-K 4 seats in school-based settings. There's also funding for community pre-K seats as well.
Right. Another question was very, very specific. It was, I have a question about my child's school not providing AC, even with a note from his doctor saying it was necessary for medical. That you need to take up specifically with your school district superintendent, or go the channels, be respectful of the process, mention it wherever, the teacher, whoever's above that, go to the nurse, et cetera, if your child absolutely has a medical need for AC, the school really needs to provide that. So don't be afraid to, ride that horse right up to where it has to go until you get what you need for your kid.
And as a reminder, New York State PTA has a resolution on maximum classroom temperature, so we continue to advocate that as well.
So Kyle, if we could just jump back for our final question, we only just have a couple of minutes on the Foundation Aid itself. There was a question about, it's already set for districts, and can we, in this advocacy that we're doing now, affect a change in how much each district gets, i.e. the formula? Can you kind of explain about that part of it?
Great. So on Foundation Aid, the answer is no. So Foundation Aid is a set formula that is generated by law. It is literally, and I'm not kidding you, a 27-page formula. I wasn't kidding. 27 to 37, I'm the tiers formula that is state generated. So when we advocate for school aid, we cannot change Foundation Aid, but the good news is we don't need to change Foundation Aid this year because we're getting all of the Foundation Aid we are owed. Now, having said that, there are other things that we want in addition to foundation aid, pre-K, after school. We have a lot more school aid things that we're going to be asking for other than these few asks. More community school money, more mental health money, other funding streams. So you'll be hearing more from this on some other budget asks as we move forward in really the next month and a half. On foundation aid, this is what we get. So there's not going to be any more addition. One important note is that foundation aid also has what's called a minimum offset, meaning that every school district in the state is going to get a minimum of 2.99% increase. That is the minimum for this year. So every school district is going to get basically a 3% increase in their school aid, foundation aid from last year to this year. No matter your school district wealth, every district is going to get 3%. Some districts are going to get much more than 3% because in the past years, they didn't get a whole lot. So they're going to kind of get caught up this year, but every district is going to get 3%. Now, next year is going to be the big opportunity for PTA and stakeholders because the formula ends. After this, it's state fiscal year 24 is the fiscal year we're in, which is actually school year 2023-24. Our formula is over. So we, working alongside what's called our educational conference board members and the state education department, now we're beginning to work on a new school aid formula to figure out how we're going to actually fund schools moving forward. So that's where the hard work is going to be. But on foundation aid for this budget, we get what we get, and we got a lot. We got 10%, which is really great.
Thank you for that, Kyle. And it just gave us a little preview of what to expect for next year. So thank you for that. So we are going to just take a moment now. We're going to kind of move more into your part of the, and by you, I mean all of our attendees, your role in all of this. So we're going to start with, we're going to be talking about our local lobbying efforts by legislative visits, either virtual or live, and Kyle is going to introduce that topic to us.
Great. I'm actually going to turn things over to Patrice. So Patrice.
All right. So we're going to move into our short training session. Kyle, are you playing a short video on actually how to make a legislative appointment?
Yeah.
All right, because we're going to have that first.
You are right. You are right, Patty. I was wrong. So hold on one moment. Give me one moment.
We are good. There's a lot that when we do a program like this, it's really, there's so much that goes into it. And I just want to thank everybody who makes this happen. And I also want to thank people who are coming and really gaining a lot of information from us. That's our chief objective. So here we go.
Here we go. Good evening, New York State PTA. I am Kyle Bellikavitsky, your executive director, and I'm so excited just to talk to you for about 5 minutes on actually how to make a legislative appointment with your senator and assembly person. Patrice and our fantastic advocacy committee are going to talk to you a little bit about what to do in a legislative committee meeting or legislative meeting. They're going to talk to you about our issues a little bit more in our breakout rooms, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the practical way to make that phone call to call your members of the Assembly and the Senate, because we're doing things a little bit different, which is really exciting. We really want to empower you to be able to make those phone calls, to make that personal connection with your senator, with your member of assembly. So let me walk you through the process. Each of you has a senator, a New York State senator, and a New York State member of assembly that represents you based on your home address. The senator is the upper house, or the upper chamber, as we call it. Your assembly person is the lower chamber, as we call it. They are both equally important to represent you as their constituent. And we want you, if you're willing to actually work with the people from your region, we're going to kind of do some coordination on that after this Zoom meeting, and to actually schedule a local visit or a local Zoom meeting with them to talk about these critical issues, to talk with them about school meals, to talk with them about school aid, and to talk with them about the critical issues, mental health and things facing our students in our school buildings. So how do you do that? And how do you know who they are? Well, some of you may know who your senator, your state senator, and your state assembly person is. Fantastic. If you don't know, I'm going to show you how to do. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. So you're going to go to the New York State PTA webpage, nyspta.org. Now, I hope you can see my screen. And there, you're going to go up from this screen, you're going to go to advocacy. See the advocacy drop down. From advocacy, you're going to go to take action campaigns and click on take action campaign. From take action campaign, you're going to scroll down, and on the right-hand side, you're going to see something that says find elected official. I don't know if you can see that. So on the right-hand side, it says find elected official. So again, nyspta.org. And then advocacy, and then find elected official. You're going to type in your zip code. I'm going to use our office here, 12205, then you're going to hit the arrow. Then it's going to ask you for the street address. I'm going to put in 1 Wembley Court, Wembley Court. You will use your home address. Okay, so here are the elected officials. If I lived here at the office, some days I feel like I do live at the office, but if I lived here at the office, my elected officials, and then you're going to scroll down all the way to the bottom of that list. All the way to the bottom of that list, and it says your state officials. You're going to be looking for the words senator and assemblyman or assemblywoman. My senator and assemblywoman or assemblyman, as they're called, if I lived here at the state office, would be Senator Jake Ashby and Assemblyman Phil Steck. So you can see them here. I'm kind of circling. I'm circling. And that's how you know how your senator assembly people are. So to make it easy, you can actually click on them, and it actually gives you their phone number, 518-455-2381. So you pick up your phone. You can actually call their office and ask them for a meeting, which is really easy. Or you can actually email them right there. Same thing with your assembly person. You click on it. It gives you their phone number. You call their office, or you can send them an email. It's as simple as that. We tried to make everything, I'm going to stop my screen share. We tried to make everything as simple as possible right on that New York State PTA webpage. Again, we're going to go to nyspta.org. We're going to click on advocacy. There's going to be a drop-down box that says take action. You're going to go to that take action drop-down box. You're going to go to the right-hand side that says find my officials. You're going to type in your home address, because that's who is represented by you. And that's it. If you have any questions, you're going to call the state PTA office or contact your region director. They're always fantastic and a resource for you. What's going to happen now is if you decide you're going to want to have a local meeting, we're going to be emailing you all tomorrow saying, hey, do you still want to have a local meeting? You're going to say yes, or you're going to say no. We're going to then kind of group you into groups and start to facilitate those meetings for you. So wait for that email. Wait for that email from me. You're going to get that tomorrow. I'm so excited, but I wanted to kind of show you the process and how you go about making those local meetings. Because for some of you, you may be the leader for your group making that meeting. If you have any questions, again, you can call our state office at 518-452-8808. You can contact any of your fantastic region directors. They are always your first line, your first call, your first email, because they are your primary contact for everything PTA. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kyle.
Look, here I am live. Now back to Patty.
Thank you. Before we break out into our training groups, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all once again for attending our 2023 Legislative Summit, and in advance for your participation in our upcoming virtual or local legislative visits. Your single voice can make a difference, but together our collective voices can and will make an even bigger impact on the lives of our children. Thank you for your commitment and dedication to PTA and for all that we stand for. Together, we will proudly support kids, raise awareness, and make every child's potential a reality. If you indicated you are interested in attending a virtual or local meeting with your state legislator, as Kyle said, tomorrow, you will be receiving an email with next steps in attending that meeting. Remember, your voice is important. And now I'm going to ask Patrice to join me to explain which breakout room we are all headed to. The good news, you don't have to switch to a new Zoom line, so stay right here. You will be choosing a breakout room for the next training. It should last just, like we said, until 9 o'clock. So lastly, on behalf of President Helen Hoffman and our entire New York State PTA governance team, thank you. Thank you for advocating for every child with one voice.
All right, we're back. We're really, really excited now to move into our short training session. Thanks to Kyle for that short video on how actually to make that legislative appointment. But if you have trouble, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you every step of the way. So now in our breakout sessions, we're going to be covering a few topics that are really important for that legislative appointment. Things like the dates of when we want to meet locally, tips for successful meetings, and ideas on how to talk about your personal story, or even your school story, because things like that really make an impact with legislators. That personal touch, huge impact. So we are now going to begin to move into our breakout rooms. Kyle's going to show a slide on which breakout room you should join. If you are a first timer, you will choose either room A, B, or C based on your last name. So first timers, room A, last names will begin with A through I. Room A, last names A through I. First timers, room B, last names J through R. Room B, J through R. First timer room, room C, last names S through Z. S through Z. That would be room C. If you've been to 2 to 4 legislative summits or lobby days, you're going to choose either room D or E based on your last name. So room D, your last name will begin with A through L, and that's for 2 to 4 timers. That's D for A through L, and E for M through Z. Room E, M through Z. Those are the 2 to 4 timers. And if you are in our experience group, 5+, you're going to be in room F. And everybody. All right, so A through Z. Room F for 5+ timers, A through Z. I want to thank you once again for joining us, and please grab whatever room you're supposed to be in. If you have any questions, you're not sure, pop it in the chat. I'll get you to your right spot. All right.
And we're going to open the rooms right now. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. And I'm opening those 6 breakout rooms.